Well, good morning. Kubian Organis here again, and I'm sorry the broadcasts are not in the way that I said they would be. I've done two, and for one reason or another, they've not come out. One of the reasons was I didn't have the microphone switched on, and it's hard work doing what I do, only to find out it wasn't switched on. And the other one was to do with, I think it was data, too much data or something. I'm not sure. But today I'm going to start with some good news and bad news. But as you know, I am a descendant of people who came from the Caribbean. And if you go back further than that, and in the Caribbean, a DOS, a descendant of slaves. However, as you know, the United Kingdom is the realm in which I live. England is my country, it's my home. I know no other. And I'm sure comparisons could be made to others. But it is the home of the nation that was the first to abolish the transatlantic slave trade and abolish chattel slavery. Be that as it may. The good news, there is a test series taking place a cricket test series taking place in the West Indies. In the Caribbean, the first one was held in Barbados, the second one in Antigua. And the West Indies boys have won both of them. It's a 3-test series, they've won 2. Effectively, they take back the Wisdom Trophy, the Frank Royal Trophy. First time in a long time, they've got that in their possession. And they've won the series with 1 to play. And so I'm going to shout out the lads. Braithwaite, Campbell, Hope, Bravo, Hetty or Hetmeyer, Chase, Dorrich, Holder, Roach, Joseph, and Big Shannon the Cannon, Gabriel. Well done, lads. Running concurrently, the West Indies female cricket side have won their series against Pakistan, so big up Melissa Aguilera, the captain. Steph Taylor, the captain, hasn't been playing in that series. So big up the likes of Keisha A. Knight, Deandra Dottin, Shakira Selman, and I don't want to get any of the Anisa Mohammed. And there's quite a few of the girls I've been watching their cricket from time. I'm a supporter of the development of their cricket, and it's good. And so therefore, in support of those collection of islands and the resources that they've got, they've always punched over their weight. And still hold, even though they've got, in recent years, have gone through a slump and have been beaten by everybody pretty much, even lowly teams. They still hold the world record, probably only going to hold that, the only team that's ever going to hold that world record, of being the longest undefeated test side in the history. I did the research on that one day, and by 1 test match, they pip Australia. It is what it is. But by 1 test match, they pip Australia. Okay, so enough about cricket. Been some good bowling. Captain Holder made a double century, which was good. I was talking to a cricket fan of mine, and I was talking about sometimes you have to give a man a responsibility, and you see what they do. It happened with Michael Clarke. He then made a triple century. It's happened with Darren Sammy, nice guy. He never made a test century before, or first class century. His one and only test century, captaincy, was getting wickets. Look at Virat Kohli, MS Dhoni. You know, sometimes it doesn't happen with all people, but sometimes when you give them the captaincy, you know, a sense of fulfillment and destiny occurs. And so that's the first thing I wanted to say. Now, I'm a bit confused as to my last video, what I actually spoke about. Don't really watch them after I've done it. Maybe a bit of one to make sure the vocals are okay. And I really should actually have a database and my program scripts. I would, but I've been doing my dissertation. Oh, so let's talk about the dissertation and my master's. I submitted my dissertation in on the 31st. And it's not as I would like it, and there is a possibility that it will come back as a fail. And I'm hoping that if it does, and I'm doing reading and working on it now, that I get a chance to resubmit. In all essays, if you get a fail, you get a chance to resubmit. So I cannot see why I wouldn't get that opportunity. Therefore, I'm not wasting any time. I knew what I didn't get to do then. I put in what I did, and I am kind of I'm in the process of restructuring and getting the information together. So that's kind of bad news-ish, but we shall see. The other thing I want to do for you guys is, I claim to be an educator. I claim to be a researcher, historian. I've coined the term social detective. That's in my glossary, in my dissertation, so it should be taken seriously when I describe what that is. Combination of, well, you know what detective does? Well, I'm a social detective. So I look at historical phenomena from the past, events and so forth, and I look at what historians have read of those matters, and wherever I can get primary sources, I do the research on that, and I have my voice, and I put my unbiased voice to what's going on. That means you've got to do a lot of research and spend a lot of money on books, possibly some, if you're a researcher at all, you know, published peer-reviewed papers you have to pay for, okay? So there's a lot of work in it, and it's unpaid, okay? It can be paid once you understand the subject you're talking about, and you can give a coherent narrative, and you've got your resources, then you can put that to print. The chances are you'll need to have startup capital to do it yourself and have your own printing, publishing. Because a lot of these big houses want you not to say certain things and to just discuss certain things and to, you know what I mean? Everything's about how they want you to say what you see. In other words, take a dump in your work. They just want to take a dump in your work and know that your work has got some of their dump in it, you know? No, when I do that kind of work, I don't really need your interference. It's either good work and it's for the people anyway, right? The gospel. So that's my talking of dissertation. Now, it's 2019, and I think we've got to clean house. We've really got to clean house. And so I'm going to name this DVD Cleaning House. Are We African? And the Fake Pan-Africanists. Cleaning House. Are We African? And the Fake Pan-Africanists. I say fake Pan-Africanists because I hear a lot coming from that side. And when I first started listening to them, it just sounded like racism, you know. And when I say racism, put quotes around it. Colour prejudice and anti-white. Hate of anti-white, and I can't just say it stopped there. It was hate of Asians. It was hate of everybody. And I'm like, well, who are you? And as I, spent time listening to these guys, and when I say these guys, I'm going to name some names. In the UK, in London especially, I believe if you're anywhere in Derby or Bristol, there's going to be a pirate radio station. What we call a pirate radio station is supposed to be illegal, but it's funny how GCHQ allows them to broadcast every week for years. Anybody who's doing something illegal on the airwave and does it for years is under the pay or supervision of GCHQ, ergo the government. So it raises the question, and I'm going to raise the question, of the 1960s COINTEL, counterintelligence program of the FBI. Now, in the 1960s America, there was an awakening from the descendants of slaves who wanted to have their own identity and their own voice about what they believed to be their quest for freedom and justice and fair play. And much of it was inspired by the kind of political activism and the the race riots and the activism that civil rights movement and the way they were treated and so forth. And the police being the government's bully boy arm. You know, we've seen the films, you know, setting dogs onto people, dogs actually biting people, and, you know, water hoses, which is dangerous actually. It's not as benign as you think it is. I mean, one of those, James O'Brien, I think it was, those shock jock left wing, you know, he was all for the water cannon. You know, water cannon, you know, rioters, you know. So I showed him a picture of water cannon and what it can do. It was a German rioter. The water cannon caught him in the face and his eye was hanging out. He shut up. I know he got the email. He shut up and backtracked. He didn't do it immediately. But I think he knows now it's not a benign tool. Okay? If it catches you in the face, it will rip your eye out. The force of that water, hey, you know what I mean? You just see it from a certain distance and it might make people fall over and skid along the floor. If it catches you close in any way, whether you're guilty or not, that's indiscriminate. But be that as it may. So, COINTELPRO. So we're talking about COINTELPRO. And what it was, there was an African-American awakening, and then it was Say It Loud on Black and Proud. And, you know, you got the tune on Young, Gifted, and Black. Everything was about black, being black. Now, it worked for the 60s. I don't call myself black, I'm chocolate brown. I have an issue with people demanding that I write and say black as opposed to Negro or whatever. I've now adopted DOS. You know what I mean? I now say DOS because that's specific and I know who I'm talking about. Tell me I can't use the term Negro and everybody has. I can't use the man of cut. You know what I mean? You want me to say black. Well, I'm not black. I know what my shoes look like. I'm not black. And I don't buy into that kind of sophomoric, I'm proud to be black, you know, or my blackness, right or wrong. I don't do that. No, don't do that. Not with me. So anyway, at the time, these Americans waking up and having its own voice, its own agency. And they went down the kind of, and I can understand it, going down the kind of Marxist route with the Black Panthers. And, you know, if you listen to right-wingers, they kind of give you the impression that the Black Panthers were a racist party. And they were just about, you know, whitey, get whitey, you know, honky and all that stuff, which wasn't true. It was vehemently anti-police, to which they gave them the epithet pigs. You know what I mean? They hated the police because the police hated them. And it was just a bully boy, you know, it's the usual. Bigots, white bigots, barely educated or with a nominal education, nothing else going for them, join the police force. And if you don't like blacks or anything like that, you can oppress them at the drop of a hat. Low-hanging fruit, we call them in England. So they have the right to bear arms. So yeah, the Panthers were arming themselves. And they had, you know, political awareness. And it wasn't just hooligans, it was intellectuals as well, okay? And that concerned the likes of J. Edgar Hoover. And what he wanted to stop was the rise of a new black messiah. You know, definitely didn't want another Marcus Garvey or anybody like Jesus Christ. You know, God forbid somebody like Jesus Christ arose from the same place it rose, you know. We can't be having that. I mean, the ripple effect, whoa, centuries down the line, people still believe. You know? We can't have this black messiah. So, what they did, usually within states of flux and growth, there emerge a movement, and there are those who are disgruntled because they want to be the leaders of the movement, and they are ripe for approach to co-opt and to bring disruption and to take down the original. So you've got an original freedom movement, if you will, and all of a sudden another one springs up like you needed to. You don't need to. But the other one is saying pretty much what this one's saying, but came afterwards and trying to be more radical. And then there becomes a bit of confusion, and then there's a fight between the two. Well, that happened with the Black Panthers and the US movement, the US movement. Some call it United Slaves, some call it just us. And the head of that was Maulana Karenga, Ron Karenga. This is the idiot, the turncoat traitor, the COINTELPRO agent who invented the nonsense practice of Kwanzaa. That's your COINTELPRO right there. There are many other examples of COINTELPRO. This show is not about specific American COINTELPRO and so forth. But what it is um, sometimes moneyed. All of a sudden they just spring up and they've got a lot to say about some of the concerns that you may have, some of the injustices, and they try to be uber you. They are so uber you. They talk about reparations, what are needed. They talk about, racial injustices and all of that stuff. But most of all, they want to make money off you, and as they know women are easy to get, they sleep with the women. And the women go for it because they think, right on. It's one of those things. That's why we call women booty. Because at the end of the day, it is what it is. Once you make it and get a voice or a clout of any kind, they come a-running. And that's the booty. If we was an army invading somebody, that's the loot and the booty. They're not gonna say, "Oh, you want to rape me?" With knife to their throat. Oh no, they don't do harikari and that. Men do that, They don't do that. They just say, "Oh well, king is dead. Long live the new king." Oh, he's even better. Oh, rough. And the rough sex, they think is, oh. And my man's like, "I'm in a hurry, man, bitch." And then, Sergeant comes in and says, "Hurry up, bitch, we've got to go. We're moving on to the next village." So he's ramming her away, and she's like, "Oh, this is so good." And there you have your treachery, right? Treachery right there, because all of a sudden, she's controlled by that orgasm, and she thinks he loves her. And she will ever be. Forgetting about the original king. And I'm going to get back to that in this broadcast, because we have to understand psychology. I've never studied it, but in studying education, you come into psychology. And so therefore, in this crash course of dissertation, there's a lot of studying I did around the subject, non-stop, all right, to be much more informed. So I know what I'm talking about, okay? Of course, producing my own show, I'm not doing that at this moment, because I'm still not in a comfortable space, right? So, COINTELPRO, clean house, COINTELPRO, no, clean house, are we African, and COINTELPRO. I've forgotten what it is, but it's going to be clean in house. And it's 2019, so I'm going to clean house. Now, for a long time, I think it was, 10 years ago, for a period of 10 years, I had no television. And that's when my education began to start. My TV broke down many years ago. And I said, "Oh, I'm not going to fix this. What's the point in this?" And something was on the radio, and I used to engage in listening to pirate radio stations in America, just to find out what's going on. And, I understood who Alex Jones was and so forth. I thought this was interesting. Who needs TV? And you might hear a book mentioned, and if I hear something that's interesting, well, then I go to the shop and buy that book, or Amazon that book. And I was surprised in 1 month how many books I read. I think it was 2 or 3 I read in the first month, and I was like, I did that, I was like, whew, it held me, So started to read a load of books, and that was my journey then. Do you know what I mean? And I read about lots of things about the world in which I lived, and I knew nothing about. I was just an existing ball of energy, programmed to act a certain way, without really knowing. Pretty much a slave on a plantation. Thinking you know what you know, but you don't really know anything because you haven't actually done any research and read one book. Well, I have read some books, school books and stuff like that. But, done my own self-teaching and my own self-analysis, and realising sometimes you read a book and you think that's good. Then you read another one and you begin to understand, oh, that was a load of bullshit. That was a waste of money, waste of time. No, it wasn't, because at least you know how to identify politically motivated books. And you get to understand what is left-wing and what is right-wing. And I'll explain that, do a video on that one day if you really want to know. Because you might even say, oh, he's a Marxist, he's a raving Trotskyist, Stalinist. You need to know what these terms mean. Now, that has nothing to do with me. Well, stay asleep. You're not informed and don't want to be informed. You just want to hear say and hear tell and run that. That's your life. You can do that. I don't care. You're not important. In terms of, if I put it in this way, in an army perspective, you got ranks. You got commissioned officers, right? And then you've got your non-commissioned, like your sergeants and your corporals. But at your basic, you've got your squaddies who take all the orders. They haven't got the patience to listen to nothing, so they get grilled to do, just frontline, and yours is to do or die, don't ask no reason why. And, fair enough, there's nothing wrong with it. That's why some of them guys, when they show their bravery, because that's what they're ready for, they get medals and rewarded, and they should do. And when they come home from work, they should be respected, right? That's definitely undercooked. They should be rewarded, okay? Because they're what they call in the army grunts, okay? Now, I've given a brief overview of COINTELPRO and fake leaders that the CIA pay to mislead. I mean, Al Sharpton. It turned out he was an FBI stooge, all the time running behind James Brown. James Brown used to use heroin. Well, we all know that. We all know who got him busted then, don't we? Because he used to have this little kid who used to have the same bouffant hair as James Brown, and James Brown used to like him. All the time, this kid was tapped up, and he just spying on everything James Brown, obviously, right? So I don't know why this guy gets to talk and walk around. Do you know what I mean? But it's over here. Well, I'm not going to call no names. I don't know, but I'm going to say this for starters. 2005, I started to listen to UK radio over here to find out, well, what's going on a pirate station? Don't they have a talk show where they address issues as well? Is it everything that the white man does that you can actually get some knowledge and understandings? Isn't there a black equivalent in the UK? I mean, I'm reading, I'm learning, and lo and behold, there was. And I never used to understand which of the two they were, because I didn't know what time the shows came on. I know it was flick around on your radio dial and you pick up one. So one, to me, was just as the other one was. I didn't know who they were, and I began to differentiate the Tweedledees and Tweedledums. One was Genesis Radio, and the other one was Galaxy Radio. Galaxy Radio's broadcast from South London. I think it's 28 Tumut Road. And they were professed to be the de-brainwashing station, Pan-Africanist, Afrocentric, if you want to call that, right? And Genesis, their moniker is the Black Power Station, the People's Station, right? And I used to listen to a lot of what these broadcasters say, and at first, it's nice to hear, not the mainstream, but other people discussing different issues from your own voice. But no sooner did I start to listen to them, I began to think, what's going on here? And it was African Liberation Day. There was an African Liberation... I didn't even question that. African Liberation Day celebration that Galaxy was running. And I used to hustle DVDs. Reality DVDs. Right? The 9/11 stuff was going on. All kind of bits of, bits and bobs. And I must have got in contact with Bongo Tete. He calls himself Chief Prakamba by now. Bongo Tete, who is the man who runs Galaxy Radio. Now, this is an ex-squaddy who tells everybody he was in the British Army. He's a Jamaican in the British Army. And when the outbreak of war took place with Argentina, this big, brave Jamaican, he certainly ain't brave, he starts shit up his pants, innit? And rather than, like every other squad, he say, right, we're going in, he cowarded out and hit his NCO. Thereby, default, you go to the brig. All right? They lock you up. Okay? So he missed out on the short war that it was because he was coward. Absolute coward. He's telling us this story, but he's not telling us, that's the reason why. But that's the reason why. You didn't want to go because you're scared, right? You love the army so much. Why didn't you just serve in the Jamaica Defence Force? Do you know what I mean? And I'm saying this because I'm talking about the 100 videos I gave you. And the deal was, set up a stall. Here's some free ones. I gave them some stage shows, some plays, Jamaican plays, brand new. So, have these, right? When you sell one of these videos, We split the money 50-50. You take half, I take half. And for these videos, you give them maybe a dancehall video to go with it free, or you give them a play free. You know what I mean? So your people who are at the stalls are getting 2 videos for the price of 1, and you and I go 50-50. Right? Well, what he didn't sell, he gave back to me. We're going to look at the books and calculate the books and all that stuff. Okay, I'm not going to be rushing you down for the money. Then comes the announcement, well, what's up? Well, we didn't make any money. We didn't sell anything. I'm like, but I got 75. I mean, that's not a heck of a lot, but I got 75. So where are they? At that point, I woke up and I said, you know what? It's not a big deal, but it's the fact that on a small scale, the first opportunity you've got, as collective, we don't want you to work together. I work with you and you rip me off straight away. No hesitation. The Jamaican ripped me off. At that point, side-eye. From then, side-eye. I started to think about what they were saying. Then I thought the obvious thing is, what are you celebrating African Liberation Day for anyway? It's a continent. It's not a country. And none of those countries are liberated. They're all under the aegis of the IMF. What are you celebrating? It's fake. And I'm like, well, hang on a minute. Could this be COINTELPRO? Because why would you be doing that? How could you celebrate African Liberation Day as if it's one country? And every African I knew who'd recently come from the continent, I said, where are you from? They never said, I was from Africa. They would tell you the specific country they came from. And if you ask more, I'd say, well, which tribe? If he's Nigerian. Hausa, Igbo, Yoruba. They would tell you, they never use Africa. Only Europeans, and are they COINTEL, who use that language. Now they're talking about, we're African. They keep pushing, and I've heard this thing, it's got louder and louder and louder. It's a bit like, back in the day, people were saying black, black, black in the UK, and if somebody said coloured, there would be this big uproar. And I'm like, what are you uproaring about? My dad's mentioned it. Coloured, so? Well, I am a man of colour. I couldn't understand that. And all of a sudden, from out of nowhere, Africa, we're African. And I'm like, I'm not African. I wasn't born on the African continent, neither were my parents. We are petri dish people. We have been removed hundreds of years from Africa, or the continent of Africa. And it's a specific part of Africa. We're nothing to do with Southern Africa and the Zulus. We're nothing to do with Northern Africa and the Berbers and so forth. Mauritania, Algeria. We're nothing to do with Eastern, Eritrea, Tanzania, Kenya. We're not in the middle of Africa, where you got the Congo and so forth. West Africa, Gold Coast, Liberia, Sierra Leone. Along that's where you come from. Okay? And furthermore, why use the term Africa anyway? You're so Pan-African, but the name comes from Scipio Africanus, the guy that conquered, eventually beat Hannibal. He's a Roman general, and that's where the name comes from. There are many who would say, well, the continent of Africa was called Kemet. Some would say it was Alkebulan. But you keep pushing, we African. There's no part of West Africa I can go and survive. I don't speak the language. I don't know the tribal traditions and tribal rights. Half the time these guys who are so Pan-Africanist, they're always talking about what happened in Egypt and the religion of Egypt. I just saw one the other day about, it's running down Christianity, and it's talking about Egypt. I'm like, well, look, you're a descendant of slaves. What gods did you have in West Africa? Why are you... It's a bit like Malana Karenga. He's got all these sprinklings from Kenya, but you're West African. What are you saying? Obviously, you're admitting that there was no gods in West Africa, no cultural religions that you think are viable. You have to create a hodgepodge from bits and pieces from East and try to create a philosophy behind it. This is COINTEL. I would argue this is COINTEL. This is silly. Anybody that supports that is either COINTEL or a useful idiot that can be woken up. But if the African Liberation Day, COINTEL, useful idiots, or it's just gal that want to wear kente cloth and look for some cultural man who smokes a bit of weed and get a new boyfriend for the time being, right? It's justified to be hanging out with that because at least it's not hanging out with somebody else